Welcome to the NoobTube YouTube channel for day 284. This was the 10th of June, 2023, a Saturday. So I did exercise. I had a coaching call with Jeffrey Combs. I worked on books. I worked on insurance. I worked on Remote Wellness Academy, and I worked on I Am Academy. So today I'd like to continue our discussion that I was having yesterday about my early childhood and then going into the military. So I had a rough childhood going in, and I had actually dropped out of high school, and I had enlisted in the Army. So at the time, this is back in 1988, early 1989, I had enlisted in the Army in 1988, in December of 1988. I was 18 years old. I had dropped out of high school, and I couldn't join the regular Army because you needed to have either a high school diploma or a GED at the time. But I was able to enlist in the Army Reserve without having either a high school diploma or a GED. I took the ASVAB, the Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery Test, did well on that, and I was able to enlist into the reserves. So when you go into the military, you take that test, that ASVAB test, which is a vocational aptitude battery. It's basically a test to determine what fields, what occupational specialties you would be best suited for. And then when you're if you enlist in the reserves, you not only can only sign up for occupational specialties that that you qualify, that you would do well in, but you would also have to find vacancies and units available in your commuting area. Because in the reserves, what you do is you go on active duty. You go on active duty, full time for about 6 months or so, however long your training would be. So you go to basic training, boot camp, and then you go to your advanced individual training, your AIT, and you learn your military occupational specialty. So they offered me like 5 different jobs. Supply, offered me to be a cook, field artillery, and then there was 2 personnel jobs. There's a personnel administration specialist and a personnel management specialist. So I chose the personnel management specialist, 75 Charlie. That's the MOS that I enlisted in. So I went into the military, and I was not prepared for what was going on, because I was not in good shape. I didn't play any high school sports. When I was a teenager, I had a bottle explode in my face, and I was overweight, and I had all kinds of issues. So I was not physically fit, and that's definitely not what you'd want to do if you were enlisting in the military. I would highly recommend to everyone who is considering joining the military in any capacity, in any field, any branch of the service, to get in shape, make sure that you're physically and mentally, prepared for this type of experience, because I definitely was not, and I almost did not make it. At the time, to get into basic training, you had to take a test when you first got there. You went to the reception battalion. I arrived at Fort Knox and went into the reception battalion, and males had to take like a push-up test, and you had to do 13 correct military push-ups, and I couldn't do the 13 correct military push-ups. I did about 7 or 8 of them, and then I went to this pre-basic training, which was just like basic training. It was only like extra training. And it was up to 3 weeks long, and they would tell you when you first went into this fitness training unit that if you didn't complete, if you weren't able to pass this test within like 3 weeks, then you would be given an entry-level separation. You'd be given an uncharacterized discharge, like you never even attempted it. So fortunately for me, within like 2 weeks, I was able to do the 13 push-ups. But I had a rough time. It was a real rough time, and there were times when I almost did not, make it. In fact, there were a couple of individuals who were probably just as bad as me on the physical side of the equation, being in the military, going to the boot camp and basic combat training. And some of those people didn't succeed. Some of those people were later, when they went to basic training, they were booted out. They were basically allowed to continue, and they were forced out. I really believe to this day that what really had saved me was, first of all, I was trying really hard, and the drill sergeants could see that I was trying really hard. But I also had a very good memory. I had a knack for memorizing things. So I had memorized like the code of conduct before anybody else had, and I memorized, my general orders and the soldier's creed, and I had memorized all this information and could rattle it off. And the drill sergeants were impressed with this. So I was able to stay. In fact, one of the tests, one of the things that you had to do while you were in basic training was throw live hand grenades. But I was doing so many push-ups, and my arms were so sore, I had no accuracy in my throws. And they basically were like, we're not going to let you go throw any grenades. So the drill sergeants at the time had played a cruel joke on me, and they had said, we're going to make you complete the whole basic training, and we're not going to let you graduate because you didn't complete this essential part. Well, they had me believing this, all the way up until the day of graduation. And, they handed me my packet and said, get your ass on the bus. And I had gotten a waiver. I had gotten a waiver from the battalion commander waiving that part, saying, hey, I did good on rifle marksmanship. I was, I had a good attitude, and I did well in every other area except for that. And that was something that, they were confident that I could later improve upon. And indeed I did. But I lost a lot of weight when I was in basic training, and, but that was the thing. So they told me 3 things, and this is really good advice. And it's not just good advice for people considering being in the military, but just in general. They say, in order for you to be successful in basic training, you need to have 3 things, right? The first thing is you need to do everything that you're told to do. You need to, if they tell you to jump, you say how high, you do everything that you're told to do, right? The second thing is you need to keep a positive mental attitude. You don't whine, you don't bitch, you don't complain. You come out there and you keep a positive mental attitude. You lift up your teammates, and you be a good battle buddy, a good fellow soldier, a good comrade at arms. And the third piece is don't quit. So do what you're told. Keep a positive mental attitude, and don't quit. He said, if you do those 3 things, he said, I guarantee you will be successful, right? And there's a lot of people that just won't. If you're missing one of those 3 things, it's going to be nearly impossible. But if you have that and you go in there with that attitude, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do everything that they tell me to do, and I'm going to keep a positive attitude. I'm not going to get upset or get frustrated. And I'm going to not quit, no matter how hard it is, no matter when, you get people yelling at you and all that. I remember when I was in the reception battalion, I met, I was like thinking, there's no way that I can do this. There's just no way. I'm just not cut out for this type of lifestyle. And I asked to see the sergeant major, and I went to go see the sergeant major. And the sergeant major was a Vietnam-era command sergeant major. He was command sergeant major when I enlisted in 89. I went to basic training in 89. And, he was like, I guess he was from Los Angeles, if I remember correctly. He was from Los Angeles, and he got some convictions for grand theft auto, and the judge told him Army or jail. So he chose the Army, and he went to Vietnam. From my understanding, he was a decorated hero. He was a person who had served his country very heroically and served in Vietnam. And then he continued in the military and obtained the highest enlisted rank, which is that of a command sergeant major. And he's like, he was telling me, um, you know, you don't quit, and you need to just tough it out. You'll be a better person, as a result of this. It changed. He's like, it changed my life, and it'll change yours. And actually, for being a trainee, for being a new recruit, it's actually very civil, very nice conversation that he had. This is a very, very long time ago. I'm 53 years old. This is a conversation that I had with somebody back when I was 18. But it impressed upon me, first of all, it was like, I believe that the military would be, I wish that they still had programs like that, because they don't make sergeant majors, they don't make NCOs like that anymore. I mean, that NCO, yeah, he was wild, and he had, went astray, but that's the whole point. The military gives you second chances. So they don't, nowadays you can't do that. Nowadays it's like, that doesn't exist anymore. But that's kind of a shame. I miss people like that, because they were people. Those are the kind of people that if you went to combat, you would want that person next to you. That person would make sure that you get home, right? Because you get the wrong person next to you, you might be the one dying as a result of somebody else's mistake. So I want to be clear that the military has risks, and you can wind up dying or disabled. But most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time you're getting great benefits for life. Even if you do 4 years, you're going to get some outstanding benefits. So even though I don't really like the woke culture that's going on, I don't agree with it. And I don't think it should be involved with the military. I think that it's still a great opportunity for young persons, especially someone like me. It gave me like a new lease on life, and put me in the right direction to be successful, and come out. When I was definitely stumbling out of the gate, I was definitely having some challenges with all that. So I'm grateful for that sergeant major. I'm grateful for those drill sergeants. I'm grateful for my recruiter. My recruiter did not lie to me. My recruiter was extremely truthful and honest. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have served. I'm proud of my service, and I think that I got from the military as much as I gave. I think I got more from the military. The military really helped me out, and it's all good, because it can be like that. It can be a situation. Hey, you want to pay for college, you want to have a career, you want to take care of your dependents, your family members. This is something you can come right in off the street. You don't have to know a damn thing about anything. You just got to have, like I said, 3 things. Do what you're told, positive mental attitude, don't quit. If you do those 3 things, you will do well. And that's what I would suggest. And even if you don't join the military, have those 3 things. It's good to do something like that. It's good to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So if I had to do it all over again, I don't think I would. If I hit the reset, if there was a reset button and I wanted to reset my life, I don't think that I would go the 20 years, but I would definitely do 4, because those 4 years were great. I went over to my first assignment at 19 years old. I never had been outside the country before. I went to Germany. So that was my first of 3 assignments in Germany, 3 tours in Germany. But yes, it was a good experience. So I went to basic training at Fort Knox, and then I went to advanced individual training at Fort Benjamin Harrison. Loved it. Was so impressed that when I finished that, and then I was released from active duty, and now in the reserves, I wanted to enlist in the regular Army, but I needed to have permission because I had enlisted it in the reserves, and the reserves need people too. So they're not, reserves kind of pay for their people to go to basic training in AIT. And they're not really too fond of people who want to change their mind and go in the regular Army. But for me, it was like that was the only choice at the time. Well, after I had finished basic and AIT, I came back. I completed my high school, got my high school diploma, and then wanted to enlist in the regular Army. I needed to have a waiver from the colonel of the reserve unit, And that colonel was very gracious. The colonel could have said no, but the colonel said yes. And at the time, I thought this was coming to me, but now I'm like, damn, that colonel could have been a jerk, but that colonel was awesome, and the colonel was very supportive, and I'm very grateful for that colonel who was there, and I was allowed to enlist into the regular army. So that's my initial story. Tomorrow I will tell you about my tours in Germany and what I learned from that experience. So thanks very much for watching. I will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.